Do you really think that in the modern world, ownership is something tangible? Something you can actually hold in your hands? If so, you are living in a massive illusion. The truth is, everything you think you own exists only because someone else hasn't decided to steal it yet. In the past, theft required breaking a wall or blowing up a safe. But today, all you need is a high-definition lens and the ruthless ambition to process the data leaking from that lens. In 2020, when the pink Mercedes arrived at the Formula One paddock, the world didn't just see a racing car. It witnessed the execution of intellectual property in a public square. Mercedes had spent over $100 million on the W10 model. They sacrificed thousands of hours in wind tunnels, and etched the sleepless nights of hundreds of engineers into every single millimeter of that machine. But when the season started, a neon pink clone was standing on the grid. The Racing Point RP20. Their defense was a slap in the face of the entire legal system. We didn't steal it. We just looked at it, and we built what we saw. That sentence opened the darkest door in the history of property rights. Today, I am not telling you a story about a racing scandal. I am showing you a preview of how your work, your time, and your life can be legally taken away just by being looked at. Value stops being property the moment it is seen. Welcome to Legatech Insights. We are at the point where your concept of ownership will never be the same again. This is not about two pieces of metal looking alike. This is about how engineering DNA is hijacked. At the heart of this scandal were the brake ducts. Parts that look ordinary from the outside, but are vital organs that decide the aerodynamic fate of the car. When Racing Point said, "We looked at the photos and modeled them," they were telling the biggest corporate lie of the modern era. Think of it like Instagram, copying Snapchat's stories feature. They didn't steal the code. They just saw the logic, and wrote their own version. Overnight, $1 billion uniqueness evaporated. But the critical detail in F1 was this: in 2019, buying these parts was legal. In 2020, the rules changed, you must design them yourself. The law suddenly demanded the impossible: forget what you know. You cannot ask a person to forget their native language. And you could not ask Racing Point's engineers to forget the aerodynamic secrets of Mercedes. Once information leaks, the law is no longer a force for justice. It is just a funeral director. Racing Point didn't just steal a design. They hijacked the most valuable asset Mercedes had: time. If your primary capital is your time, and someone can take it just by photographing it, tell me, what do you really own? But wait, did Racing Point just create a similar part, or did they clone the very soul of the Mercedes? This is where it gets truly haunting. A Formula One car design consists of millions of lines of code, and complex mathematical data. When Racing Point said, "We just looked at the photos," they were claiming they solved a master code, simply by looking at the locked door from the outside. Technically, that is almost impossible. This is where the concept of ghost data comes into play. Lawyers and engineers spent months asking one question: how do you distinguish inspiration from theft? If the similarity between two designs exceeds mathematical probability, it is no longer creativity. It is a data leak. Racing Point didn't just copy the outer shell. They copied the computational logic underneath it. It's like not just stealing a writer's book, but copying the exact way they choose their words, their very mind. There is no physical evidence, because the evidence is etched into the engineer's brains. And the law cannot punish what it cannot see. So, we return to the real question: in a world without evidence, how do you find justice? What did the system say to this blatant theft? This is the darkest part of the video. The FIA fined Racing Point €400,000, but they added, "You can keep racing with these stolen parts." Stop, and think about that. Is that a punishment? Or is it a license for illegality? In Legatech, we call this criminal arbitrage. The chance to own $100 million of Mercedes R&D, for a €400,000 fine. If breaking a rule earns you 1,000 times more than the fine you pay, then that fine is no longer a penalty. It is a business expense, just like tech giants treating patent lawsuits as marketing costs. The system is whispering to you, if you are rich enough, you don't steal. You just prepay the cost of the theft. Justice is no longer a universal right. It is a service, with a market value, designed for those who can afford the bill. But there is a darker question in this story that everyone ignores. Why did Mercedes stay silent while their design was being stolen in plain sight? Why didn't they burn the world down to protect their property? The answer lies in the dirtiest secret of the modern economy, dependency. Racing Point was not just a rival to Mercedes. They were a customer. They bought their engines, their gearboxes, and their logistics from Mercedes. What we saw here wasn't just a theft. It was a silent alliance. By allowing their design to be cloned, Mercedes created a loyal, satellite team against the rest of the grid. Ownership was sacrificed for a much larger power balance. This is the ultimate proof of how the system corners you. The giants don't steal from each other, they share. They only use the law to keep the small players out of the game. If property rights conflict with the strategic interests of the giants, the laws are suspended. Now think about this: if the concept of ownership is this flexible for the giants, how safe are your rights as an individual? It's time to leave the dusty corridors of the paddock and look at the phone in your hand. Now, leave the paddock. Look at the phone in your hand. The pink Mercedes scandal is a preview of the technology you use every single day. Do you think you own your phone, your smart devices, or the car in your driveway? The Tesla example is no longer a theory. As of February 14, 2026, the one-time payment is dead. Now, you must pay $99 every month for autonomous driving. The hardware might be in your hands, but the mind that runs it is locked in Tesla's servers. Whoever holds the key is the real owner. Just like in Formula 1, power is not in the physical object, it is in the data. You think you are an owner, but you are actually a tenant, whose landlord can change the locks at any moment. Welcome to digital feudalism. The laws are not here to protect you. They are here to make sure this new regime of ownership runs smoothly. I am Liga Tech Insights. In our next episode, we dive into human ownership. The golden cage contracts that trap F1 drivers like racing horses, taking away even their own names. Subscribe, and wake up from the illusion. Because if you don't know the rules, you aren't the player at the table. You are the prize, being shared. See you in the next analysis.